Let's move on to the NFC West. Who is going to win the NFC West in 2021? This is the toughest division in all football, at least in my opinion. And it should be in your opinion as well. But that's a story for another day. I have the 49ers winning the NFC West division in 2021. So here's how I have things shaping out in the NFC West. I believe San Francisco wins the division with a 12-5 record. I believe the LA Rams will finish second as a wild card team. They'll be a wild card team with an 11-6 record. I actually have the Arizona Cardinals making the playoffs as well. They're going to finish 10-7 in 2021. And yes, I actually have the Seattle Seahawks missing the playoffs in 2021. They'll finish with a record of 9-8. So let's start with the 49ers. Last year in 2020, the 49ers were coming off a Super Bowl loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. And they had high expectations. They did not live up to those expectations. But why was that the case? It was mainly because of injuries, okay? This team had injuries to the offensive line, to their wide receiver core, the defense. Like, they were the most injury-riddled team in the NFL in 2020. But they still found a way to win 6 games. And they actually swept the LA Rams. They beat the LA Rams both times, and they were an injury-riddled team last year. So now, assuming San Francisco doesn't have such bad luck regarding the injury bug this year, I think San Francisco is locked and loaded. I think Jimmy Garoppolo has his flaws. I do believe the 49ers made the right decision in choosing to draft Trey Lance to be their quarterback of the future over Jimmy Garoppolo. But we saw Jimmy Garoppolo, in 2019, when he played all 16 games, the 49ers were able to get to a Super Bowl with him being their starting quarterback. So the 49ers have proven they can go far and win games with Jimmy Garoppolo. Not to mention, you have a great running game. You have star wide receivers, a great tight end in George Kittle. Now, that wide receiver depth chart worries me because outside of Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, there isn't a whole lot of other great wide receivers on that team, and the 49ers really lack depth at that position. But if they stay healthy, I think they're good for about 12 wins. Okay, this defensive line is absolutely loaded with talent. The secondary is kind of questionable, but I do think that the 49ers will find a way to get the most out of the talent on that roster. And they have a pretty favorable schedule. They have to play at Detroit. They play the Philadelphia Eagles. Those are the first 2 games to start the year. They get Green Bay at home to start the year. They get Seattle at home to start the year in week number 4, I believe. They play at the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are rebuilding. They play the Bengals, and they play the Texans. So the 49ers have a favorable schedule. They'll win the division. The Rams, I think the Rams are a really talented team. I think Sean McVay is a great head coach, and the roster is really, really good. This is a team that can make a Super Bowl run. However, there will be growing pains with Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams in year number 1. I think the Rams will be a really good playoff team in 2021. I believe next year in 2022 is when we can start to say, okay, is Matthew Stafford going to win the Rams a Super Bowl? But I think there'll be some growing pains in year number 1 because we saw Aaron Rodgers and Matt Ryan, 2 former league MVPs, 2 guys that have been to Super Bowls. Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl. Those guys had growing pains learning a new system a couple of years ago. And I think Matthew Stafford is going to be in the MVP conversation. He's actually my pick to win the MVP award. But you're talking about a guy in Matthew Stafford that's never won a playoff game. And this is a tough division. And there will be some growing pains with Matthew Stafford and the Rams, putting all the parts together, him learning a new system. So I think the Rams are a good team, but not quite as good as people think they are. And I think that their lack of depth could hurt them because they're a top-heavy roster, and they had some key losses on defense. But I still think the Rams will be a playoff team. The Arizona Cardinals. I have the Arizona Cardinals being a playoff team in 2021. I do firmly believe Arizona is going to make the playoffs this year. They'll be a 10-win team. Last year, through the first 10 games of the season, we looked at the Arizona Cardinals and we said, man, this team is improving. This team looks like a playoff team, and the wheels eventually fell off. But I think a lot of people were a year too early including myself, on the Cardinals last year, to the point where the Cardinals were a little overhyped last year, but this year they're flying under the radar, very similar to the Cleveland Browns, where Cleveland and Baker Mayfield's second year, everyone had high expectations. We said this roster is amazing. They're going to win a bunch of games. They didn't make the playoffs. This year, I think Kyler Murray will take another leap in year number 3. Under Cliff Kingsbury, I believe Kyler Murray has really good weapons to throw to. You have DeAndre Hopkins. The Cardinals added A.J. Green. They drafted Rondale Moore. They added Rodney Hudson, who's a really good player on the offensive line. James Conner's a solid running back. I think that Cliff Kingsbury, we're going to wait and see how good he is this year. But the Cardinals have improved under Cliff Kingsbury every single year. So I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, and I'm strictly in wait and see mode with him. But I do think the Cardinals rosters, it has some real talent. And I think that J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones, that's the best pass rushing duo in the entire NFL. And I believe J.J. Watt is going to bring Tom Brady level qualities to that football team and to that defense. He'll be able to help establish and change that culture. And I think the Cardinals will be a playoff team this year. The Seattle Seahawks, I tried to convince myself that Seattle should be given the benefit of the doubt because they have Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's never had a losing season. He's only missed the playoffs one time in his 9-year career. But I just don't see it with Seattle this year. I think that, look, Pete Carroll, I think that Seattle's honestly peaked under Pete Carroll. I really do. I don't think Seattle improved all that much this offseason. Sure, you added Gabe Jackson to the offensive line, but there's a reason why the Raiders were so quick to move on from Gabe Jackson. He's a good player, but not a great player, okay? And let's be real. The Seattle Seahawks have a brutal schedule. And last year, Seattle won a lot of one-possession games. And they've been winning a lot of one-possession games over the past couple of seasons with Russell Wilson. And at some point, I believe it's going to catch up to them. I believe 2021 is the year. I think Seattle has kind of peaked under Pete Carroll. Not to mention Seattle has to play on the road at Indianapolis. They play the Titans. They play at Minnesota, at Pittsburgh, New Orleans. They play at Green Bay, at Washington. And I didn't even mention the division games between the 49ers, the Cardinals, and the Rams. So I think Seattle's good. They'll have a winning season, but they will actually miss the playoffs this year in 2021, in my opinion. Thank you so much for watching this video today. Please also note that the Juice Alert Sports Podcast is not just a YouTube channel. It is available on all podcasting platforms, including Spotify, Google Podcasts, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Also, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share this content with all your friends. This podcast is my favorite thing in the entire world right now. It is my passion. And I want more people to listen to this podcast. I really want this podcast to grow. Also, a fun fact about me is that I want to go into the sports broadcasting and media world once I graduate from the University of Toledo, a college in Northern Ohio. I am looking to become one of the next great sports broadcasters and analysts out in the world. And I potentially would like to start my own network if this podcast really truly grows. Or if I fall short of that goal, I would love to work for a big-time network like ESPN or Fox Sports 1. I am open to all networks. So if you believe in my dreams and you see or hear my passion through the screen, be sure to tell all your friends about the Juice Alert Sports Podcast. Stay motivated, you guys. Have a God bless day, and I'm out.